This is Alex Mercer, coming to you live, and what I am about to report marks a turning point unlike any other in human history. For the first time since the Leviathan entered orbit, the silence has been broken, not by violence, not by force, not by the chaos we once feared, but by something precise, deliberate, and unmistakably intentional. Moments ago, global monitoring stations detected a transmission unlike anything we have ever recorded. It did not arrive as a burst or a flare. It did not overwhelm our instruments. It arrived calmly, methodically, unfolding in layers of mathematical structure and harmonic resonance, as if it wanted to be understood rather than merely detected. This is not noise. This is not threat. This is communication. Across the world, antennas, satellites, deep space arrays, and even civilian radio equipment began registering the same pattern almost simultaneously. At first, engineers believed it was interference, another distortion caused by the Leviathan's presence. But within minutes, patterns emerged: prime numbers, symmetrical sequences, harmonic ratios embedded in electromagnetic waves, music, mathematics, and physics woven together into a signal that repeats, refines, and gently corrects itself, as though anticipating misunderstanding and patiently guiding us toward clarity. Linguists and physicists are now working side by side, an unprecedented collaboration, confirming that the signal carries structures universally associated with balance, non-aggression, and coherence. Not a command, not a demand, an invitation. I am listening now to experts from the International Signal Analysis Coalition, and their voices are shaking, not with fear, but with awe. One physicist described it as a greeting designed for a young civilization, saying the signal avoids complexity that could overwhelm, choosing instead foundational truths of the universe. Ratios found in atomic bonds, waveforms echoed in human neural activity, and rhythms that mirror the natural oscillations of Earth itself. This transmission does not impose itself upon us. It adapts to us. It waits. It repeats softly, like a hand extended and held steady, not knowing known whether it will be taken. What may be most unsettling and most profound is what the signal does not contain. There is no threat embedded within it, no coordinates for conquest, no technological blueprint meant to dominate or seduce. Instead, there are pauses, measured gaps, spaces intentionally left empty, as though inviting response rather than reaction. Scientists are calling these listening intervals, moments where the transmission quiets, allowing Earth's own electromagnetic noise, our broadcasts, our signals, our presence, to flow back into the void. For the first time, it feels as though we are not being spoken at, but spoken with. Around the world, reactions are unfolding in real time. Control rooms are silent except for hushed voices and the soft hum of machines. In some cities, crowds have gathered spontaneously, watching screens that translate abstract data into sound and light. When the harmonic components of the signal are rendered audibly, people describe a strange calm washing over them, heart rates slowing, anxiety easing, a sense of being addressed rather than observed. Psychologists caution against reading emotion into data, yet even they admit this signal feels different. It does not provoke panic. It does not trigger alarm. It steadies. Governments for once are not rushing ahead of the public narrative. Emergency councils have paused. Military channels remain open but quiet. No defensive posture has changed. No weapon systems have activated. This alone tells you how unprecedented this moment is. The world is listening, truly listening together. Religious leaders have issued statements urging calm and reflection. Scientists urge patience. And ordinary people, watching from living rooms, rooftops, and open fields, are realizing something profound at the same time. Whatever this intelligence is, it did not come to erase us. It came to reach us. I want to be very clear with you, wherever you are listening from. This is not the end of uncertainty. This is not the answer to every fear we have carried since the Leviathan arrived. But it is the first undeniable proof that intelligence beyond Earth is not only real, it is intentional, restrained, and aware of us as thinking beings. The universe has not shouted at us. It has spoken softly, carefully, respectfully, and that alone changes everything we thought we knew about our place among the stars. So take this moment in. Remember where you were when the silence broke. Not with fire, not with destruction, but with a signal built from the same mathematical truths that bind atoms, stars, and life itself. This is Alex Mercer, bearing witness to the first words spoken across the cosmic distance. This isn't noise. This isn't threat. This is communication. And humanity, at long last, is listening. This is Alex Mercer, coming to you live, and what is unfolding above our planet right now feels less like an event and more like a decision, one made not only by the Leviathan in orbit, but by the Earth itself. Moments ago, global weather systems registered something impossible, a perfectly controlled atmospheric corridor forming beneath the alien vessel. Clouds that once churned and shifted unpredictably have begun to part along a single, precise path, stretching from the edge of space down toward a remote, uninhabited region of the planet. This is not turbulence. This is not disturbance. This is stabilization, weather, gravity, and air pressure aligning in a way no natural system should be able to achieve on its own. Satellite imagery confirms what the naked eye is now witnessing. The corridor is visible from thousands of kilometers away, a vertical passage through the atmosphere where wind speed drops to near zero, temperatures normalize, and electromagnetic interference vanishes. Storm systems approaching the region simply dissolve or bend away, as if encountering an invisible boundary they cannot cross. Aircraft routed anywhere near the corridor report instruments suddenly behaving flawlessly. No drift, no vibration, no atmospheric shear. Pilots describe the sensation as flying through stillness, a pocket of absolute calm carved into the chaos of Earth's sky. Meteorologists, struggling to find words, admit this corridor defies every known atmospheric model. What is perhaps most unsettling is the way gravity itself seems to behave inside this passage. Objects released within the corridor descend smoothly, neither falling nor floating, but guided, lowered gently as if by an unseen hand. Sensors dropped for analysis do not accelerate normally. Instead, they move with controlled precision, their descent rate constant and deliberate. Physicists watching the data describe it as gravity under supervision, a phrase I never thought I'd say on air. It is as if the Leviathan has not only opened a path, but rewritten the rules within it, temporarily asserting its own order over the forces that govern our world. And the sky, my God, the sky itself looks different. Clouds do not tear or scatter violently. They peel back in vast, elegant arcs, forming layered walls of vapor that glow faintly with reflected light from above. Sunlight refracts along the corridor's edges, creating shimmering halos that shift as the Earth rotates beneath it. People across continents can see it, a vertical scar of clarity carved into the heavens, stretching endlessly upward. There is no thunder, no roar, only a low, steady resonance that vibrates through the air, barely audible but unmistakably present, like the hum of something vast and controlled moving with intention. Ground teams positioned near the projected landing zone report something even stranger. Wildlife has retreated calmly, not in panic, but in quiet anticipation. Winds that once howled across open plains have fallen silent. Dust hangs motionless in the air. Even sound behaves differently. Voices carry farther, clearer, as though the atmosphere itself has been tuned. Instruments placed on the ground show pressure systems stabilizing into perfect equilibrium, neither rising nor falling. This is not the chaos of arrival. This is preparation. The sky is not being torn open. It is being opened. And as I watch the live feeds, as I listen to scientists, pilots, and observers struggle to describe what their senses are telling them, one phrase keeps surfacing again and again. Purpose. This corridor was not forced into existence. It was shaped, designed, offered. It feels less like an invasion route and more like a ceremonial path, a passage prepared with care, restraint, and respect for the world it touches. The Leviathan is not crashing through our atmosphere. It is asking permission, and astonishingly, the Earth appears to be granting it. So let me say this clearly. To anyone listening who still fears what comes next, whatever is about to descend is not arriving through fire or violence. It is coming through calm, through balance, through a sky that has parted with intention. The corridor remains open now, stable and luminous, a bridge between worlds held delicately in place. This is Alex Mercer, witnessing the moment the heavens themselves step aside. The sky is no longer just above us. It is making room. This is Alex Mercer, and I need you to listen carefully now, because what is happening at this very moment is quieter than anything we've witnessed so far, and somehow, that makes it all the more overwhelming. From the heart of the descent corridor, a smaller vessel has separated from the Leviathan. It did not break away with force. There was no flash, no eruption of light, no violence in the motion. It simply emerged, smooth and deliberate, gliding downward along the stabilized path, as if the sky itself were guiding it by the hand. The vessel is elegant in form, curved, seamless, reflective without being metallic, its surface catching the ambient light of the atmosphere in soft, shifting tones. It does not roar. It does not burn. It descends in absolute silence, and the world seems to instinctively grow quiet with it. As it approaches the surface, every sensor we have is reporting the same impossible reading. No heat bloom, no pressure shock, no radiation spike, no gravitational surge beyond what the corridor already stabilized. The air does not ignite. The ground does not tremble. Cameras positioned around the landing zone show grass bending gently beneath an invisible cushion of displaced air, blades bowing as if in a soft wind, but there is no wind. Stone surfaces remain intact. Soil does not scorch or crater. Even dust settles slowly, peacefully, as though gravity itself has been asked to be gentle. Engineers and physicists are staring at their instruments in disbelief, because by every law we understand, something descending from orbit should arrive with violence. And yet, this arrives with care. The moment of touchdown is so subtle that many observers almost miss it. There is no impact sound, no seismic reading beyond a barely perceptible tremor that registers more like a settling breath than a collision. The vessel simply rests upon the earth, its lower surface hovering a fraction above the ground, before making contact so softly that sensors struggle to pinpoint the exact instant it happens. Grass beneath it lies flattened but alive, springing slightly at the edges, unburned and unharmed. Rocks remain whole. Nearby plant life shows no signs of trauma. It is as if the ship has adapted itself perfectly to the planet's surface, conforming rather than imposing. People watching from monitoring stations and live feeds are crying openly, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of what this moment represents. For generations, we imagined alien landings as fiery, catastrophic events, sky tearing open, cities leveled, the earth scarred by arrival. But this is the opposite of conquest. This is restraint made visible. This is power choosing not to harm. I'm hearing one geologist describe it as a landing that respects geology, and another biologist quietly say, "Nothing here is being taken." And that phrase, "nothing is being taken," keeps echoing through every channel. Standing here, watching the vessel rest on our world, I am struck by how deliberate every aspect of this arrival has been. The Leviathan remained in orbit. A corridor was prepared. Conditions were stabilized. And now, this craft has arrived without fire, without force, without claiming even an inch of Earth through damage. It does not dominate the landscape. It belongs to it, at least for this moment. There is no sense of urgency, no aggressive posture, no sign that this is an extraction or occupation. This is a visit, a careful one. And so I find myself lowering my voice without realizing it, because shouting feels inappropriate. The planet is quiet. The air is still. The vessel rests before us like a held breath finally released. They have arrived, not as invaders, not as conquerors, but as something else entirely, something that understands the value of a living world. I can only whisper this now, because it feels like anything louder would break the spell. They've arrived, without taking anything from the earth. This is Alex Mercer, and I'm struggling to find language that doesn't immediately feel inadequate, because what is unfolding before us right now does not resemble any arrival humanity has ever imagined. The vessel has remained still since touchdown, its surface gently pulsing with that same soft, harmonic light out we've seen reflected in the sky for days. And now, slowly, deliberately, it has opened. Not with mechanical force, not with hissing steam or grinding metal, but with a seamless unfolding, as though the structure itself were breathing outward. From within that light, the beings have emerged. They are tall, taller than any human present, but there is nothing imposing in their stature. Their forms appear partially biological, partially luminous, as if matter and energy are interwoven rather than separated. Their bodies do not have hard edges. They seem softly defined, contours shifting subtly as they move. Light flows beneath what might be skin, tracing patterns that resemble neural pathways or slow-moving constellations. Their limbs are long and graceful, their movements unhurried, precise, and unmistakably intentional. They do not rush. They do not scan their surroundings like predators. They step forward as one might step into a sacred space. Their eyes, if that is the right word, are what hold everyone frozen in place. They reflect light rather than emit it, deep and layered, like looking into still water beneath a night sky. There is no glare of superiority there, no cold assessment. What observers describe instead is awareness, focused, present, and curiously gentle. When those eyes move across the gathered instruments, the environment, the horizon itself, it feels less like being studied and more like being acknowledged, as though we are being seen, not evaluated. What is striking, almost unsettling, is how carefully they move. Each step seems calibrated to the earth beneath them, weight distributed with extraordinary precision. Sensors indicate minimal pressure displacement, as if they are consciously limiting their impact on the ground. They do not trample vegetation. They step around it. When a breeze stirs, their luminous patterns subtly adjust, interacting with the air rather than resisting it. Biologists watching the feed are whispering the same word over and over again. Adaptive. Not armored, not defensive, adaptive. There are no visible weapons, no tools raised, no symbols of rank or authority. The beings do not spread out tactically or take commanding positions. They remain close to one another, forming a loose, open arrangement. Not a formation meant to intimidate, but one that feels social, communal. And perhaps most telling of all, they pause. They stop moving entirely for several long moments, as if giving the world time to absorb their presence, as if allowing humanity the space to breathe through the shock of first sight. I'm listening to the heartbeat monitors of the nearby human observers, and something extraordinary is happening. Fear spikes initially, naturally, but it does not sustain. Instead, heart rates begin to slow. Breathing steadies. Neurological readings show heightened alertness without panic. Psychologists are already theorizing that whatever these beings are, they are intentionally modulating their presence. Not chemically, not technologically, but behaviorally, to minimize threat perception. If that sounds unbelievable, understand this. Nothing about this encounter feels accidental. As I watch them now, I realize something profound and deeply unsettling in its simplicity. They don't walk like conquerors. There is no claim in their posture, no declaration of ownership in their movements. They move like guests, like visitors stepping carefully into a home they respect. And that realization, more than their appearance, more than their technology, is what has left so many people openly weeping, silent with awe, or clutching one another in disbelief. For all our stories, all our fears, all our expectations of dominance or destruction, this first face-to-face moment is defined by restraint, by patience, by an intelligence that understands the power of how one arrives matters just as much as the fact that one arrives at all. Humanity is not kneeling. Humanity is not running. Humanity is watching and being watched. In a moment balanced so delicately, it feels as though the future itself is holding still. This is Alex Mercer, bearing witness to the moment the unknown stepped into our world, not as rulers, not as saviors demanding gratitude, but as something far more difficult to process. Equals who chose kindness first. This is Alex Mercer, and I need to slow my voice now, because whatever just happened did not arrive through sound or language or force, but through feeling. One of the beings has stepped forward, not abruptly, not dramatically, just a single deliberate motion separating them slightly from the others. And then, very gently, it raised a limb. No sudden gesture, no sharp movement. The limb lifted as if in greeting, or perhaps recognition, and from it emerged a soft wave of light. Not a beam, not a flash. A pulse, wide, diffuse, and impossibly calm. At first, observers thought it was merely visual, another luminous phenomenon to catalog and analyze. But within seconds, something extraordinary began to register across the globe. Medical monitors near the landing site showed heart rates dropping, not dangerously, but steadily, returning to baseline. Cortisol levels fell. Breathing synchronized. People who moments earlier had been trembling, crying, or frozen in shock suddenly felt steady, not euphoric, not controlled, just calm. The light did not overwhelm the senses. It seemed to pass through them, resonating rather than imposing. Neurologists are now confirming what millions are already experiencing firsthand. The waveform embedded in that light aligns uncannily with human neurological rhythms, patterns associated with safety, trust, and emotional regulation. Brain activity shifted away from panic responses and toward coherence. Fear didn't vanish, but it softened. Anxiety loosened its grip. Across hospitals, emergency shelters, and crowded city streets, people paused mid-motion, hands lowering, shoulders relieved tension they didn't realize they were holding. For the first time since this event began, the world exhaled, and it wasn't localized. This is what's staggering. Reports are coming in from every continent, from astronauts aboard orbital stations, from submarines beneath the ocean, from rural villages with no screens and megacities flooded with them. People describe the same sensation in different words. A warmth behind the eyes, a quieting of internal noise, a sense of being, acknowledged, not judged, not directed, simply recognized as conscious beings sharing the same fragile moment. I'm hearing from emergency dispatch centers that call volumes dropped sharply within minutes of the gesture. Panic-related incidents declined. Riots halted mid-escalation. In some cities, crowds that had gathered in fear now stand silently together, strangers sharing space without conflict. Religious leaders are calling it a blessing. Scientists are calling it resonance. Psychologists are struggling to name something that doesn't fit into existing frameworks. But everyone agrees on one thing. This was not manipulation. It was permission to feel safe. What makes this moment so profound is what the beings did not do. They did not speak. They did not issue commands. They did not override free will. The wave carried no instructions, no images, no thoughts. Only balance, only regulation, only the quiet reminder that fear is not the only possible response to the unknown. If this is communication, then it is communication at the most fundamental level, below language, below culture, below belief. Watching the being lower its limb now, I can tell you this was not an act of dominance. It was not a display of power meant to impress or subdue. It was a gesture. Universal not because it was understood intellectually, but because it was felt. Peace delivered without words. And perhaps that is the most astonishing thing of all, that an intelligence so far beyond us understood exactly how fragile this moment was, and chose to meet us not with answers, but with calm. This is Alex Mercer, and for the first time since this story began, the world is quiet, not because it is afraid to speak, but because it is listening to something deeper than sound. This is Alex Mercer, and what is happening now feels less like translation and more like understanding taking its first breath. The beings have not moved closer, yet suddenly the space between us is no longer empty. The air itself has become a canvas. Soft harmonic tones, low, resonant, and impossibly pure, begin to ripple outward, not loud enough to startle, but deep enough to be felt in the chest. With each tone, Light follows, not projected like a screen, not emitted like a hologram, but formed, assembled delicately in mid-air, as though reality itself is briefly agreeing to illustrate an idea. Shapes appear first, simple ones. Circles, spirals, lines that divide and reconnect. Mathematicians watching the feed are already whispering in disbelief, because these are not arbitrary symbols. These are constants, ratios that define atomic bonds, patterns that describe orbital mechanics, frequencies that mirror those found in DNA replication and neural firing. The beings are not inventing a language for us. They are uncovering one we already share, buried deep beneath culture and speech, written into the structure of the universe itself. Then the images evolve. Stars ignite in miniature before our eyes, forming nebulae that swirl and collapse into galaxies. Planets coalesce from dust, their paths traced by luminous arcs that show time not as a straight line but as a cycle, birth, change, renewal. We see worlds with atmospheres forming, oceans appearing, land reshaping itself over epochs compressed into seconds, and then life. Not specific creatures, not replicas of themselves or us, but patterns of emergence, cells dividing, ecosystems balancing, consciousness awakening again and again in different forms, on different worlds. And then Earth appears. Our planet rises gently into view, rendered in light so precise it takes people's breath away. Continents drift, ice ages come and go, forests spread and recede. Humanity emerges, not as rulers, not as destroyers, but as a young species learning to stand upright in the vastness of time. There is no judgment in the presentation, no emphasis on our wars or failures. Instead, the focus lingers on moments of connection, early tools shared, fires gathered around, signals sent into the sky. Curiosity, cooperation, the quiet persistence of survival. What's extraordinary is how the beings pause here. The harmonics soften, the images slow. Earth remains suspended between them and us, not presented as territory, not claimed, not highlighted as exceptional, but contextualized. One world among many. Precious not because it is unique, but because it is alive. Scientists observing the sequence are beginning to understand what this truly is. Not a declaration of identity, but an act of placement. They are not telling us who they are. They are showing us where we belong. The language continues to build, layer by layer. No spoken words, no alphabet. Just meaning constructed through shared truths. Physics, time, growth, balance. Linguists are already calling it non-symbolic semantics. Communication that bypasses translation entirely by anchoring itself in universal experience. You don't need to know their culture to understand a star being born. You don't need to share their biology to recognize life striving to continue. This is not a lecture. It's a conversation starter. Around the world, people are reacting in ways no emergency protocol could ever predict. Children point and understand without explanation. Elders weep quietly. Scientists stand motionless, hands over mouths, realizing that the greatest question humanity ever asked, "Are we alone?" was never the right one. The better question was always, "Are we part of something larger?" And now, in light and sound and shared patterns, the answer is unfolding gently in front of us. As the images slowly fade, the harmonics do not end abruptly. They resolve, like a chord coming home. The air clears. The sky remains unchanged, but something fundamental has shifted. We have not been given instructions. We have not been offered technology. We have been offered context. A place in a larger story that does not erase us, but includes us. This is Alex Mercer, and I am realizing, along with all of you, that first contact is not about names or origins or power. It is about recognition. They're not telling us who they are. They're showing us where we belong. This is Alex Mercer, and the truth we are being shown now reframes everything. Every fear, every assumption, every sleepless night since the Leviathan first appeared in our skies. The beings have not spoken aloud, but the shared language they established moments ago deepens, becoming more focused, more deliberate. The air fills once more with harmonic light, but this time the images do not begin with stars or galaxies. They begin with guardianship. We see the Leviathan, not as it appeared to us, looming and unknowable, but as part of a vast lineage. The light reshapes itself into immense vessels moving silently through interstellar space, ancient beyond comprehension. Each one is different in form, grown rather than built, shaped by function and time. They drift along invisible routes between stars, not patrolling borders, not seeking conquest, but watching, waiting. The harmonics carry a sense of patience that stretches across millions of years. These are not fleets of war. They are sentinels. Then we see worlds, countless worlds, forming, changing, some barren forever, others blooming briefly before fading. And among them, certain planets are marked, not with symbols of ownership, but with something resembling attention. Life emerges on these worlds slowly, painfully, against impossible odds. Microbes become ecosystems. Ecosystems become complexity. And when that complexity reaches a threshold, when awareness begins to look outward instead of inward, a guardian arrives. Not to interfere, not to guide, to protect. The Leviathan, we are shown, is one of these guardians, ancient beyond our history. Its purpose is not domination, not extraction, not judgment. Its role is simple in concept and staggering in scale, to shield emerging life from extinction-level chaos long enough for it to find its own way. Asteroid impacts, gamma bursts, stellar instability, the random violence of the cosmos that wipes clean more worlds than it spares. The Leviathan does not rule. It watches. It intervenes only when survival itself hangs by a thread. And then, the image turns to Earth. Our planet appears as it was long before humanity. Oceans forming, continents shifting, life crawling from sea to land. We see moments we never knew were nearly our end. Mass extinctions narrowly softened. Cosmic threats deflected just enough to spare the fragile thread of continuation. Not miracles. Margins. Small interventions. Precisely measured. Leaving no trace of guidance or control. Just survival. We were not engineered. We were not altered. We were allowed. Scientists watching this are silent now, many openly weeping, because the implication is overwhelming. Earth was marked, not because we are special, but because we are alive. Because life that reaches for the stars is rare enough to deserve protection. The beings are careful to show that guardians do not stay forever. They watch until a civilization becomes capable of understanding its place in the greater balance, capable of restraint, of stewardship, of choice. Only then do they reveal themselves. And now I understand why this moment feels so heavy. This isn't rescue. It's acknowledgement. Humanity has reached the point where secrecy is no longer protection, and ignorance is no longer safety. The Leviathan did not arrive because we failed. It arrived because we endured. I want you to hear this clearly, because it changes the story we tell ourselves about the universe. We were never alone in the dark. We were not ignored. We were not insignificant. We were watched, not with hunger, not with ambition, but with patience. And when the moment came, when the balance tipped too far toward annihilation, the Guardian stepped forward. So I say this now with a weight I can barely carry in my voice. We were never alone. We were watched and chosen. This is Alex Mercer, and tonight humanity learns that survival was never an accident. It was a trust. This is Alex Mercer, and what we are being shown now is perhaps the most difficult truth humanity has ever had to face, because it does not flatter us, and it does not condemn us. It simply explains. The shared language returns once more, but this time it is quieter, more restrained, as if even the beings themselves understand the weight of what they are about to reveal. The harmonics slow, the images sharpen, and the focus turns inward, toward us. We are shown a measure, not a judgment, not a score, but a balance. On one side, technological reach, satellites encircling the planet, machines that split atoms, signals broadcast into the cosmic dark. On the other side, ecological strain, thinning atmospheres, warming oceans, collapsing ecosystems. The images do not dramatize. They do not accuse. They simply overlap these realities until the contrast becomes unavoidable. A civilization capable of altering its planet, but not yet wise enough to stop itself. The beings make something unmistakably clear. This threshold is rare. Many worlds destroy themselves before they ever cross it. Others stagnate, never reaching outward awareness at all. Earth crossed it. The Leviathan's intervention, we are shown, was not automatic. It was not guaranteed. Guardians do not step in lightly. Intervention is permitted only under precise conditions, when extinction is imminent, not from internal choice alone, but from compounded threats beyond a civilization's capacity to manage without erasing itself. Asteroid cascades, cosmic instability, external chaos layered atop internal fragility. In those moments, preservation is allowed, but only preservation. No correction, no governance, no salvation from consequence. Just enough protection to keep the possibility of choice alive. What is humbling, almost unbearable, is how clearly the beings distinguish between saving a planet and saving a people. Earth was not saved because humanity deserves reward. It was saved because life here is interwoven. Oceans, forests, species yet unnamed, futures not yet imagined. The intervention was not for dominance, not for alliance, not for gratitude. It was to prevent a story from ending before it could finish being written. The images linger on children, human children, not as individuals, but as symbols of continuity. Generations yet to come, inheriting a world that still has a chance. The beings show no certainty that we will succeed, no assurance that we will change, only that we now have time. And time, they suggest, is the most valuable resource in the universe. because it allows learning without annihilation. Listening to the scientists, philosophers, and leaders reacting in real time, I hear something new in their voices. Not triumph, not relief, responsibility. Because this revelation strips away our last comfortable illusion that someone else will fix what we break. The Leviathan did not arrive to absolve us. It arrived to prevent silence. The rest remains ours. So I say this now, as clearly as I can, because it reframes everything about this moment. They didn't save us because we're powerful. They didn't save us because we're special. They saved us because we're fragile, and because fragility, when paired with awareness, is worth protecting. This is Alex Mercer, and tonight humanity learns that survival is not a gift, it is a chance. This is Alex Mercer, and what we are witnessing now feels less like intervention and more like healing carried out with extraordinary restraint. The beings have not moved closer to humanity, nor have they withdrawn. Instead, they have turned their attention outward, toward the planet itself. Through the shared language of light and harmonic resonance, they reveal what comes next. Not control, not correction, stabilization. From the Leviathan in orbit and the vessel resting gently on Earth, smaller constructs begin to emerge, what scientists are already calling planetary harmonizers. They are not machines in the way we understand machines. They unfold like living instruments, forming luminous lattices that drift into precise positions around the globe. Some settle high in the atmosphere. Others anchor deep into tectonically stable regions. A few hover at key magnetic nodes near the poles. None displace land. None damage ecosystems. They integrate, quietly, seamlessly, into Earth's existing systems, as though designed specifically to work with a living planet, not overwrite it. Almost immediately, the data changes. Climate models that once diverged wildly begin to converge. Jet streams stabilize. Ocean currents return to predictable rhythms. Extreme weather events weaken, not vanish, but soften, losing their catastrophic edges. Volcanic activity declines from frantic spikes to natural, manageable cycles. Seismographs show tectonic stress redistributing gradually instead of snapping violently. And perhaps most astonishing of all, Earth's magnetic field, fractured and wavering just days ago, begins to strengthen, smoothing into a coherent, resilient shield once more. Scientists are scrambling, but this time their disbelief is filled with wonder rather than fear. The harmonizers are not forcing equilibrium. They are accelerating recovery, amplifying Earth's own self-regulating mechanisms. It is as if the planet has been given a chance to catch its breath, to heal faster without being rewritten. Atmospheric chemists describe it as assisted homeostasis. Geophysicists call it stress relief at a planetary scale. One climatologist, barely able to speak through tears, simply says, "It's a reset without erasure." And that phrase matters, because nothing about this feels like domination. The ice caps do not snap back overnight. Forests are not magically restored. Damage remains. Consequences remain. But trajectories change. Feedback loops, once spiraling toward collapse, begin to flatten. Time, the most precious resource of all, is returned to us. Decades of recovery compressed into years, years into months. Not to make us innocent, but to make survival possible. What strikes me most is the precision. The beings could do more. That much is now obvious. But they don't. The harmonizers do not optimize Earth for comfort or productivity. They do not reshape climates to favor any nation or species. They aim only for balance, conditions under which life can adapt and choose its future without constant existential threat. This is not paradise. This is opportunity. Around the world, people are stepping outside, feeling the air settle, the winds calm, the skies clear, not unnaturally, but peacefully. Animals return from hiding. Migratory patterns begin to correct. Instruments that once screamed warnings now hum steadily. The planet feels steady again. Scarred, yes. Changed, certainly. But alive, resilient, and no longer on the brink. So let this be recorded accurately, for history and for humility. This was not a rescue that erased our mistakes. This was not salvation handed down from the stars. This was assistance offered with boundaries, wisdom paired with restraint, a reset without erasure. This is Alex Mercer, and what we are being shown now may be the most unsettling gift of all, because it offers no comfort, no guarantee, and no escape from responsibility. The harmonizers continue their silent work around the planet, but the being's attention returns once more to us. The air begins to glow again, not bright, not dramatic, just enough to make the space between us feel attentive. And then the images form, not of the past, of the future. They do not present a single path. They present many. The first vision is one of collapse, not sudden, not cinematic, slow, grinding, and horrifying in its familiarity. Seas rise inch by inch, cities retreat, then crumble. Ecosystems unravel quietly, species vanishing without witnesses. Technology advances, but wisdom does not keep pace. Resources are fought over, borders harden. The planet remains alive, but diminished, exhausted, stripped of abundance. Humanity survives here, but barely. Reduced, bitter, always reacting, never healing. There is no villain in this vision, only inertia. Then the image shifts. We are shown survival, a world that stabilizes but never truly recovers. The harmonizers have bought time, but humanity uses it cautiously, fearfully. Emissions slow but do not stop. Inequality deepens even as catastrophe recedes. Nature adapts but remains fragile. Civilization endures, technologically advanced, yet emotionally constrained, forever haunted by how close it came to ending itself. This future is not tragic, but it is heavy. A life lived always looking back over one's shoulder. And then, harmony. The shift is subtle, almost easy to miss. No utopia, no shining towers or perfect skies. Instead, balance. Cities woven into landscapes rather than carved from them. Energy drawn without violence from planet or people. Technology designed for stewardship rather than extraction. Cultures that value longevity over speed. Cooperation over dominance. Earth is still wild here. Storms still come. Life still struggles. But it endures. Together. Humanity is not at the center of everything. It is part of everything. What makes this unbearable in its honesty is that the beings offer no indication of preference. They do not point. They do not linger longer on one vision than the others. They simply present them, clearly, calmly, and then they stop. The images dissolve, the light fades, the air returns to normal, and in that absence the message becomes unmistakable. The choice is still ours. They have not come to rule us. They have not come to save us from ourselves. They have not come to decide our future. They have come to make sure we understand that we still have one. That knowledge alone is the warning. Because once seen, these paths cannot be unseen. Once known, ignorance is no longer an excuse. I'm listening to reactions from around the world now, and for the first time there is no shouting, no frantic speculation, just silence. Deep, reflective, collective silence. People are not asking what the aliens will do next. They are asking what we will do next. And that shift, that may be the most important moment of all. So I say this quietly, because anything louder would feel wrong. They didn't come to rule us. They didn't come to conquer us. They came to warn us by showing us ourselves. This is Alex Mercer, and tonight humanity is staring into a mirror that reflects not what we are, but what we are becoming. This is Alex Mercer, and something extraordinary is happening now. Not in the skies, not from the beings standing quietly on our soil, but within humanity itself. Across the world, in a response no simulation ever predicted and no treaty ever achieved, the noise of division is giving way to a shared stillness. Governments are standing down their militaries. Emergency alerts are being replaced with messages of calm. Naval fleets hold position. Airspace restrictions remain, but not out of fear, out of respect for a moment no one wants to fracture. I'm watching live feeds from capital cities where leaders who have never agreed on anything are issuing nearly identical statements, not of defiance, not of submission, of pause, of reflection. Weapons systems are being placed into passive status. Strategic commands are shifting from readiness to observation. For the first time in modern history, the question guiding global leadership is not how to gain advantage, but how not to ruin the most fragile moment humanity has ever been given. Religious leaders across every faith are speaking with a unified voice I never thought I would hear. Cathedrals, mosques, temples, synagogues, doors open wide. Bells ring, not in warning, but in welcome. Calls to prayer echo alongside moments of silence. And instead of competing interpretations, there is convergence. Sermons speak of stewardship, humility, and the shared responsibility of consciousness. Ancient texts are being reread not as predictions, but as reminders that wisdom was always meant to guide survival, not supremacy. And in the streets, this is what moves me most. Crowds are gathering, but there is no panic, no running, no shouting. People are bringing chairs onto rooftops. Families sit together in open fields. Strangers share blankets, food, stories. Phones are raised not to argue, but to record, to remember, to say I was here when this happened. In cities once defined by unrest, people stand shoulder to shoulder, gazing upward in silence as the sky reflects a world briefly free of fear. Social networks, long engines of outrage, are transforming in real time. Arguments dissolve mid-thread. Videos of the shared language, the beings, the futures projected into the air, are replayed not for clicks, but for understanding. Hashtags shift from division to unity without coordination, without instruction. A collective instinct seems to have taken hold. Whatever comes next, we face it together, or not at all. Scientists and artists are speaking to one another openly, without hierarchy. Economists pause forecasts. Militaries consult ethicists. Children ask questions adults are no longer afraid to admit they can't answer. And everywhere, the same realization is forming independently, yet simultaneously. This moment is bigger than nations, bigger than borders, bigger than history as we've defined it. For all our differences, language, belief, culture, we are reacting now not as rivals, not as factions, not even as civilizations. We are reacting as a species, one planet, one home, one fragile chance suspended between the stars and our own choices. I never thought I would say this, and mean it so completely. For the first time in recorded history, humanity is responding not out of fear of one another, but out of awareness of ourselves. This is Alex Mercer, and what I am about to describe may feel surreal because it is unlike any conclusion or farewell humanity has ever experienced. After days of observation, communication, and revelation, the beings have finally gathered near the vessel for what seems to be a closing act, but not one of finality. There is no dramatic departure, no last-minute display of power. Instead, the air itself feels weighted with deliberation, as though even the atmosphere has recognized the gravity of the moment. The shared harmonic language returns, soft and steady, carrying a message not through words, but through meaning itself, resonating with human consciousness in a way that transcends translation. And the content of that message is astonishing in its humility and clarity. They promise guidance, but it is limited. Not tools or machines that could shortcut our growth. Not instructions that could replace choice. They offer knowledge, observation, and protection, but only at the edges of extinction-level threats. The harmonic patterns now pulse in a rhythm that mirrors caution and care. Images form in the air. The Earth from space, surrounded by the Leviathan, showing points of potential disaster, asteroids, solar flares, planetary instability, but always with subtle indicators that intervention is contingent. They are not taking control. They are not dictating outcomes. They are establishing boundaries within which humanity may learn to act for itself. Scientists, philosophers, and global leaders are watching in disbelief. The beings are teaching a principle that feels almost alien in its simplicity. We may grow only through our own effort, but we are not abandoned entirely. The guidance comes as a promise, and that promise is tied to the ultimate stakes of survival. I repeat the message they leave behind because it is worth every syllable. Grow on your own. We will not interfere unless life itself is at risk. There is no subtext here, no implied command, no assertion of ownership or dominion. The tone is calm, observational, almost parental, if one dares to compare it to anything familiar. And yet, the weight of that trust is immense. We are being left with the most difficult gift imaginable, the freedom to fail or succeed, tempered only by the knowledge that our existence is being watched, and that intervention will come only when the margin between survival and extinction is crossed. And then the movement begins. Quietly, deliberately, the beings step back from the landing site, moving in unison toward the Leviathan. There is no ceremony, no pomp. Their departure is as natural as breathing. The vessel begins to stir, shifting not abruptly, but smoothly. It lifts its frame slightly, the massive shadow of the Leviathan gliding along its orbit, repositioning itself to a distant vantage point that will allow observation without intrusion. The stabilization corridors remain. The harmonizers continue their quiet work. But the Guardians themselves move farther from view, visible to satellites, yes, to ground-based instruments, but no longer in immediate presence. The Leviathan is not leaving Earth. It is simply establishing a watch point, a quiet sentinel in orbit, holding the promise of protection while restoring the planet to the full responsibility of its inhabitants. Throughout this movement, the atmosphere remains calm. Gravity, weather, and tides continue their stabilized rhythms, a testament to the lasting effect of the harmonizers and the deliberate interventions already made. Clouds swirl gently along the previously cleared corridors, and the sky seems to settle, as if the planet itself is exhaling after weeks of tension and awe. Citizens worldwide are watching. Some weep silently. Others raise cameras, documenting a departure without spectacle, a lesson without words. The Leviathan does not ascend with fireworks or noise. It glides with intention, with patience, with a sense that the act of leaving is itself instruction. And here is what strikes me most. They leave not like conquerors, not like entities imposing authority or expectation. They leave like teachers. They have shared knowledge. They have offered protection at critical thresholds. They have revealed truths about the universe and humanity's place in it. And yet they do not linger unnecessarily. They step back so that we may step forward on our own. The lesson is not hidden. The choice is not removed. The world is left in our hands, and in that leaving, the responsibility becomes undeniable. Every scientist, every observer, every person watching from rooftops, streets, or remote villages feels the weight of the moment. The Leviathan may return, but only when the stakes are absolute. Until then, the world is ours to navigate, to survive, and to grow. As the Leviathan settles into its distant orbital watchpoint, its subtle luminescence visible only at the edges of perception, the beings within the smaller vessel pause one last time. They turn, not with gesture of command or farewell, but with presence, a stillness that communicates acknowledgement, respect, assurance. And then they recede, blending with the light of the sky, leaving behind an earth that has been protected, shown truths, and yet fully entrusted to itself. This is Alex Mercer, and I cannot overstate the significance of this moment. They leave like teachers, not conquerors. The guardians of our planet do not command, they observe. They do not dictate, they protect. And in their quiet departure, humanity is reminded that the greatest challenge, the greatest opportunity, and the greatest gift is ours alone. To grow, to survive, and to find our place in a universe that has watched us long before we could ever see them. This is Alex Mercer, and tonight the sky has returned to something that looks familiar, almost deceptively so. The auroras that once burned across latitudes where they had no right to exist are gone now. The impossible colors have faded, dissolving back into the quiet blacks and blues we've known all our lives. The stars no longer ripple or shift. Constellations sit where they always have, ancient and indifferent, as if nothing extraordinary ever passed between them and us. To a casual observer, it might seem as though the universe has reset itself, wiping away the evidence of what just occurred. But that illusion doesn't last long, because one thing remains. High above, far beyond the reach of clouds and aircraft, there is a light. Steady, unblinking. Not moving like a satellite, not flaring like a star. Just present. Instruments confirm what the eye already senses. This is the Leviathan's new watchpoint, distant enough to feel unobtrusive, close enough to be undeniable. A reminder etched gently into the heavens that something ancient and aware now shares our sky, not as an occupier, not as a ruler, but as a sentinel. Around the world, people are stepping outside tonight in unprecedented numbers. City lights dim as municipalities voluntarily reduce illumination, not out of fear, but out of reverence. In rural regions, families lie on rooftops and open fields, staring upward in silence. Astronomers are recalibrating instruments, not to chase anomalies, but to map continuity, to understand how the sky we thought we knew now exists alongside something new. And what strikes everyone the same way, regardless of language or belief, is how normal everything looks, and how profoundly different it feels. There is no longer panic in that looking, no dread. Instead, there's a quiet awareness. We now know the darkness between stars is not empty, that silence is not indifference. The Leviathan does not announce itself. It does not shine brighter to reassure us or dim itself to disappear. It simply remains. Watching, waiting, and in doing so, it transforms the sky from a backdrop into a relationship. Scientists are already debating what this will mean for astronomy, for cosmology, for our understanding of the universe's structure. Philosophers are asking deeper questions. If guardians exist, what does maturity look like for a species? What responsibilities come with being seen? Religious scholars quietly revise interpretations, not discarding faith, but expanding it, grappling with a universe that now feels more intentional than accidental. And ordinary people, perhaps feeling it most keenly of all, are realizing that the sky they grew up under has gained depth, not mystery removed, but mystery contextualized. I keep hearing the same phrase from people across continents. It looks the same, but it doesn't feel the same. And that may be the truest summary of all. The sky has not been claimed, it has been shared. And knowing that changes how we stand beneath it. So let me say this as clearly as I can, as I look at that distant, unwavering glow. The sky looks the same, but we know better now. This is Alex Mercer, and as this broadcast draws toward its close, I need to tell you something that may take generations to fully understand. Humanity has crossed a threshold that cannot be uncrossed. Not because technology changed overnight, though it will. Not because governments collapsed or rose, though they will shift. But because the fundamental question that defined our species for thousands of years has finally been answered, and in its place stands a far more difficult one. We are no longer asking if we are alone. We are asking how we grow responsibly. Already the world is changing in ways that feel subtle now, but will echo for centuries. Scientific institutions are restructuring priorities, not toward rapid expansion or domination, but toward sustainability, planetary stewardship, and long-term resilience. Research once dismissed as impractical, ecological balance, climate recovery, ethical artificial intelligence, cooperative global systems, is now treated as existentially central. The presence of the Leviathan has not made us smaller. It has made recklessness feel embarrassing. Immaturity suddenly visible. Philosophy departments are overflowing. Ethics councils are being formed alongside scientific task forces. Children are asking questions their parents were never prepared to answer. Not about monsters from the sky, but about responsibility, coexistence, and legacy. Art is shifting too. Music, literature, film. Stories are no longer obsessed with conquest or annihilation. They're turning inward, outward, and forward all at once, trying to articulate what it means to be a young civilization that has been seen and spared. Politically, the changes are uneven, but undeniable. Old rivalries don't vanish overnight, but they lose their sharpest edge. It is harder to justify total destruction when you know survival itself has been deliberately protected. Harder to pretend borders matter more than biospheres. The idea of humanity as a single species, once a slogan, often ignored, has gained an anchor in reality. Not enforced, not mandated, simply apparent. And perhaps the most profound shift of all is psychological. The night no longer feels quite so lonely, but it also doesn't feel permissive. We know now that the universe is not a playground for unchecked ambition, nor a void indifferent to consequence. It is a larger system, one that allows growth, but watches how that growth unfolds. The Leviathan's promise echoes everywhere. Grow on your own. No shortcuts, no saviors, just time, protection from annihilation, and the burden of choice. We weren't given answers to every question. We weren't handed advanced tools or cosmic secrets. What we were given was acknowledgement, recognition, a quiet confirmation that life matters enough to be protected, but not controlled, that we matter enough to be watched, but not ruled. And so I say this now, as someone who has narrated catastrophe, fear, wonder, and awe across these days. We weren't invaded. We weren't conquered. We weren't even rescued in the way we once imagined. We were acknowledged. This is Alex Mercer, and as I bring this broadcast to a close, I want you to pause and feel the weight of everything we've witnessed together. For weeks, months perhaps, we have stared into the unknown, into fire, into silence, into the impossible. And yet here we stand, on the other side, alive, whole, and irrevocably changed. The skies have returned to their quiet rhythm. The auroras fade. The stars shine as they always have. But the knowledge that someone, or something, has been watching, guiding, protecting us lingers like a steady pulse just beyond perception. We have learned that the universe is not empty, that life, fragile and fleeting, matters enough to be safeguarded. We have learned that survival is not guaranteed, but it is possible when we act with responsibility, humility, and care. And we have learned, perhaps most importantly, that humanity is no longer defined solely by what we fear or destroy, but by what we choose to become in the light of what we now know. Tonight, as you step outside and look up, remember this: the Leviathan remains in orbit, watching, not to dominate, but to ensure the possibility of life continues. We are free to grow, free to fail, free to build, to protect, to learn. And we are accountable for every choice that follows. So let this moment be marked not by fear, but by reflection, not by chaos, but by awe, not by division, but by unity. The story of our species has just taken a new chapter, one that will be written by our own hands, guided by the knowledge that we were acknowledged, protected, and trusted. This is Alex Mercer, signing off. The skies look the same, but we know better now. Keep watching, keep wondering, and above all, keep growing. Good night, Earth.